My wife claimed she needed a divorce to escape her toxic family, but I just found out she secretly sold our family home for $350, $0. Now she's trying to keep all the money and take custody, and I'm terrified I'll lose everything we've built. It all started with a sense that something was off, but I never imagined I'd find out the truth in the way I did. I mean, I thought I knew my wife better than anyone. We'd been married for 8 years, built a life together, shared everything, money, dreams, a house. But then she suddenly claimed she needed a divorce to escape her toxic family, and everything started to unravel. But honestly, I wanted to believe her. Maybe she was just overwhelmed, maybe her family was really that bad. I tried to be supportive, even though I felt a gnawing suspicion that something was wrong. It all went downhill fast. The first sign was her behavior. Started acting nervous around her phone, always hiding it when I came into the room. She became evasive when I asked questions about her day. She'd lie about small things, where she went, who she was with, stuff. That didn't seem important at first, but then I noticed her being unusually secretive about money. She'd say she was saving for her future, but I caught her deleting texts and clearing browsing history on her laptop more than once. Still, I never expected what I found next. One night, I was going through some old emails on her account, just routine, trying to get a sense of where she was emotionally. I stumbled upon a message from some guy named Jake. It wasn't just friendly chit-chat, it was clear they'd been having sex. Explicit messages talk about sneaking around, plans to meet. I couldn't believe it at first. My stomach dropped. I started to sweat and felt this rush of adrenaline mixed with a sickening feeling of betrayal. My wife, the woman I trusted, was sleeping with some guy and lying to me every step of the way. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to gather myself, figure out what I was going to do. I started digging deeper, checking her phone, her social media, her bank accounts. That's when I found out she'd already sold our family home for $350, $0. She told me she was trying to start fresh, but she never said anything about selling the house. She had kept the money hidden, and now she was planning to keep it all, claiming she needed it to escape her family, but I knew better. I knew she was planning to run away with Jake, or whoever she was cheating with, and leave me holding the bag. That's when the anger really started to take hold. How could she do this? After everything we built, after all those nights I stayed up worrying about her, she was out there selling our house, lying, cheating, and planning her escape. I felt so betrayed, so helpless. I wanted to believe she was just overwhelmed and confused, but her actions proved otherwise. She was a bitch, plain and simple. She lied about her feelings, about her intentions, about everything. And now I was left with a wrecked life, a house she sold without telling me, and a woman who thought she could just walk away with the money and her new lover. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I couldn't believe she'd gone behind my back like this, selling our house, hiding the money, cheating on me with some guy just to escape her toxic family. She always made it seem like her family was the problem, but now I saw it was just an excuse. The kind of woman who always had a way of lying her way out of things, twisting stories to make herself look innocent. She's bitchy when she doesn't get her way, manipulative when she's backed into a corner, and totally ruthless when she wants something. I remember sitting in the living room that night, staring at the wall, trying to process everything. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't sleep, kept replaying her words, her lies, the way she looked at me when she was sneaking around with Jake. It was like I didn't even recognize her anymore. Honestly, I felt betrayed on every level, emotionally, financially, and physically. All those years I put into this marriage, and she was just using me, lying to me, planning her escape behind my back. I decided I had to confront her. I wasn't going to let her keep pulling the wool over my eyes. The next day I waited until she got home from her meeting, which I now knew was with Jake, and I called her out. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the sale of the house, the money she'd hidden. Her reaction was priceless. She looked shocked, then angry, then dismissive. She told me I was crazy, that I was just paranoid, that I was making a huge deal out of nothing. She said she needed to do what was best for herself and that I should just accept it. That's when I saw her true colors. She was so bitchy, so dismissive, like I was some obstacle in her escape plan. She kept twisting her words, lying some more, saying she never cheated, that I was just imagining things. But I had proof, screenshots, bank statements, her own emails. Still, she kept denying it all, acting like she was the victim. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. How could she be so callous? How could she lie to my face after everything? I realized she didn't care about us, about our life together. All she cared about was getting away, taking the money, and leaving me with nothing. The emotional toll was brutal. I'd never felt so betrayed, so hurt. I kept asking myself why she'd do this, why she'd lie and cheat and sell our home behind my back. I was furious at her for throwing everything away, furious at myself for not noticing sooner. But what hurt the most was knowing she had no remorse, no guilt. She just wanted to run, and she was willing to do whatever it took to get out. I was starting to see her for who she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who would burn everything in her path if it meant she got what she wanted. I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to come up with a plan, a way to fight back. I couldn't let her take the money, take the house, and walk away with her lover without a fight. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about standing up for myself. I wasn't going to let her ruin everything we'd built, not without a fight. I started to gather evidence, talking to a lawyer, figuring out my rights. I knew she was planning to keep the money and take custody of our kids. She'd already started spinning stories about how I was a terrible father, how she needed to protect them from me. That was her last card, her final manipulation. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. After I confronted that day, things only got crazier. She doubled down on her lies, acting like I was the one overreacting, like I was just paranoid. She kept insisting she was doing what was best for herself, that I didn't understand her struggles, but I saw through her bullshit. She was a master manipulator, and I knew I had to be smarter. I couldn't just blow up everything without a plan. I started to dig into the legal side of things. It was a mess. She'd already transferred the title of the house, which she claimed she sold for $350, $0, but I had no proof she'd actually handed over the money. I suspected she'd kept most of it. I found out she opened a new bank account under a fake name, and that's where she deposited the sale proceeds. I also discovered she'd been working with a shady lawyer, someone who was probably helping her hide the money and plan her escape. Meanwhile, she kept trying to spin stories to our friends and family. She told everyone she was leaving because I was emotionally abusive, that I was a control freak, that she needed to break free. She painted herself as the victim, but I knew better. I knew her pattern. She always played the victim when she was caught. She'd lie, deny, manipulate, and then turn around and accuse me of being the bad guy. That bitch had a way of twisting everything to her advantage. My emotional state was I was furious, devastated, and downright scared. I'd worked so hard for our life, and now she was trying to take everything from me. The house, the money, the kids. She was planning to fight me for custody, claiming I was unfit because I was too controlling, whatever that meant. I felt like I was losing my mind. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, was secretly screwing around behind my back, selling our house, and planning to leave me with nothing. I decided I had to act quickly. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in family law and property disputes. We started drafting a plan to contest the sale, to freeze any remaining assets, and to prepare for a custody battle. I knew was scheming, but I had proof of her lies and her affair. I also hired a private investigator to follow her and Jake, just to get more concrete evidence. I needed to show the court she was untrustworthy, that she was trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage. In the meantime, I confronted her one last time, telling her I wasn't going to let her walk away with the money or the kids without a fight. I told her I had enough evidence to prove she'd lied, cheated, and even sold the house without my consent. Her reaction? She just sneered at me, said I was too late, that she'd already covered her tracks. She threatened me, said I'd regret trying to stand in her way, but I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her manipulate her way out of this. And that's when I realized how deep her lies went. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She lied about her family, about her intentions, even about her feelings. She turned herself into a victim so she could justify her actions. But I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to fight back for myself, for the kids, for everything we'd built. I just didn't know how much worse it was going to get before it all finally came crashing down. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that was playing a game she thought she could win. She had already sold the house, hidden the money, and was lining up her next moves, probably planning to leave town with Jake and start fresh somewhere new. I couldn't let that happen. I knew I had to act fast, so I pushed forward with the legal fight, gathering all the evidence I could find. I wanted to show the court she was a liar, a cheater, and someone who was trying to run away with everything we had. One night, I found her packing a bag. She was trying to leave in the dead of night, probably hoping I wouldn't catch her. She looked at me with this smirk, like she already knew she was one step ahead. She told me she was done with this mess, that she was going to take the kids and start a new life somewhere she'd be happy. I saw her desperation, but also her ruthlessness. She didn't care about the pain she was causing. I realized she was cold, calculating, and willing to burn everything down just to get her way. I confronted her then and there, telling her I knew everything. I told her she wasn't going anywhere until we sorted this out legally. She snapped back at me, calling me a jealous control freak, saying I was just trying to keep her from being happy. But I knew better. I knew she was trying to escape her consequences, trying to take the money and the kids and run. That's when I decided I had to involve the authorities, because she was clearly trying to leave without any regard for what was right or legal. I contacted my lawyer again, and we filed for an emergency custody hearing. I also issued a court order to freeze the sale of the house and any funds from the sale. I wanted to make sure she couldn't just take the money and disappear. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her financials, trying to find any other hidden assets or accounts. I was starting to see a pattern. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even years, lying, cheating, and plotting her escape. The next few days were pure chaos. Threw a fit, accusing me of trying to control her, saying I was violating her rights. She lied about her intentions, claiming she was just trying to protect the kids from me, even though I had evidence she'd been sneaking around with Jake. The court date was set, and I prepared my case, knowing I had a mountain of proof against her lies. I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak, angry that she'd betrayed me so badly, and heartbroken that I might lose everything we'd worked for. But I also knew I couldn't back down. If I let her get away with this, she'd take the money, the kids, and probably even lie about me to turn everyone against me. I had to fight for what was right, for what was ours. I was terrified of losing everything, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about money or property anymore. It was about standing up for myself, for my dignity, and for the truth. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything we'd built without a fight. I was ready to go to war if I had to. The court hearing was a whirlwind of emotions. Showed up with her usual bitchy smirk, trying to act like she was the victim, like she'd done nothing wrong. She spun her lies about how I was controlling, how I was abusive, how she needed to escape this toxic marriage. Her lawyer played along, trying to sway the judge with her fabricated stories. But I had the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, emails, and I laid it all out. I told the court about the sale of the house, how she'd hidden the money, about her affair with Jake, everything. His face turned red with rage when I presented the proof. She tried to deny everything, but it was clear she was panicking. Her lawyer was trying to argue that she was simply seeking a fresh start, but I knew the truth. She was trying to run away with the money, with Jake, and leave me with nothing. The judge listened carefully, and after hours of testimony, he made a ruling. The sale of the house was invalid, the funds were to be frozen, and custody of the kids would be decided based on what was in their best interest, not manipulations. That day, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders, but I also knew this was only the beginning. Was furious. She threw a tantrum in the courtroom, calling me every name in the book, claiming I was trying to ruin her, that I was a terrible husband and father. but I didn't care. I knew I had done everything I could to protect myself and the kids. The court order meant she couldn't just run off with the money anymore, and that was a small victory. Still, I was deeply shaken. I'd gone from thinking I had a normal marriage to realizing I'd been blind to her lies for years. Over the next few weeks, I worked tirelessly to secure my rights. I hired a forensic accountant to track the money, making sure she didn't hide anything else. I also started preparing for the custody battle, gathering evidence of her behavior, her lies, her affair. I was determined to get custody of the kids, not just to punish her, but because I genuinely believed I could give them a stable, honest home. Kept trying to manipulate the situation, spinning stories that I was unfit, that I was trying to keep the kids from her. But I had the truth on my side, and I knew I had to fight hard for them. It was a brutal process, full of emotional highs and lows. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of resolve. I realized I'd been a fool for trusting her blindly for so long, was a master at deception, and I'd been too blind to see it. But now, I was seeing everything clearly. I knew the fight wasn't over and I'd have to stay vigilant. She was dangerous in her manipulations, and I had to be ready for whatever she threw at me next. Still, I refused to let her destroy what little stability we had left, and I was determined to come out of this stronger, no matter what it took. In the aftermath of everything, I've learned more than I ever thought I would about trust, betrayal, and the true meaning of standing up for yourself. The court ruled in my favor on most fronts. She couldn't keep the money, and I was awarded primary custody of the kids. It wasn't easy, and I won't pretend it was. Fought dirty, trying to turn the kids against me, spreading lies about how I was unfit, but I had enough evidence to counter her every move. Watching her spin her web of lies, I realized how much she thrived on manipulation. She's one of those people who can lie with a smile on her face, convincing herself she's the victim even when she's the villain. Looking back, I see how much I was blind. I trusted her completely, and that trust was shattered into pieces. I should have seen the signs earlier: her secretive behavior, her lies about money, her sudden desire to leave everything behind. But I was caught up in the life we built, the dreams I thought we shared. Now I know better. I know that you can't ignore the red flags, and sometimes the person you love the most can turn out to be the biggest liar. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt broken for a long time, questioning everything: my judgment, my worth, my future. But I also discovered a resilience I didn't know I had. I learned that standing up for myself, even in the face of betrayal, was the only way to reclaim my life. The kids are doing well, and I've been working hard to rebuild from the chaos. I've also learned that revenge isn't about hurting, at least, not anymore. It's about protecting what's mine and making sure she can't hurt us again. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone going through something similar, it would be this: don't ignore the signs. Trust your instincts. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't wait too long to fight for what's right. And most importantly, remember that you're stronger than you think. No matter how deep the betrayal, you can come out the other side. It might take time, it might be painful, but eventually you'll find your footing again. I've lost a lot, but I've gained clarity. And I know now that the truth, no matter how ugly, is always better than living in a lie. Life's a hell of a lesson, but I'm grateful I finally learned it.